Okay, so now let's go ahead and talk about these things. So first of all, what I would like to do is let's close all of these things. We don't need them now. And we'll keep this guy. We don't need the random, this guy. We don't need this as well, this as well. This is okay. So what I'll be doing is I'll be copying this URL just for a minute so that I can just keep it there. And I'll just keep that as a simple comment so that I can later on look out onto this URL. I'll be making a request to this page, so that is why we have it here. Okay, now the very first thing that we'll be doing is creating a constructor. So our con for constructor, and in the state we are gonna have some default thing. Now first of all, we're gonna have posts because in the Reddit we saw that in the children we have got a lot of posts there and we want to display some of them, and obviously that gives us an array. Okay, that is one thing. And we want to use some default subreddit as well. Like for example, here you can see the subreddit default is being used as a space. You can write technology there, or you can just create an input box there which replaces the space with technology or whatever the user types in. Right now I'll say that the subreddit is gonna be simply, let's just call it space. Okay, I'm pretty excited about the space stuff. Okay, makes sense in here. And what we'll be doing in here is, let's just call another component method there. So I want my Reddits to be displayed as soon as this page is being loaded. So that means I have to call a component lifecycle, which is component will mount. So component will mount looks good so far. And in the component will mount, I could have write the entire code in here, but that would not be a much modular code. So I would like to call in a method here so that later on when you are gonna maybe modifying this application, you can use these methods quite easily. So we'll be calling a method this dot get Reddit, and obviously this method doesn't exist right now. So we have to first of all get it registered in the constructor, you know the drill. And this is going to be simply this dot get Reddit equals this dot get Reddit dot bind. This looks good. Now it's a good time to write the definition, otherwise it's gonna complain to us. Yep, it's complaining. Now I'll write in here just above the constructor, and we are gonna say not this dot get Reddit, we are gonna say get Reddit. And here we'll be using our axios, okay, to make a request. Excuse me for that. And now let's just try to define that. Okay, so let's just call. Now making a request is pretty easy. And again, all of this is coming up from the documentation in itself. So if I go on to the axios there and look out for the axios, you will see that everything is mentioned in the documentation and everybody learns from there. So there are a lot of things, test and trial and all of these methods, but you don't have to look into the documentation. I'm here to explain everything to you. So we're going to use a dot get method. Yes, there are others as well, like post and everything. And we're going to use dot get method. Now also some of you might be complaining that, hey, you haven't discussed about the backtick method so far. You has been using the old style of using the double quotes. And if you are not aware of, there is a backtick available as well in the React, or in fact in modern ES6. And here what you can do is you can just paste everything in here. So let's just paste from http to reddit/r this. Let's copy this guy and I'll paste in here. And now whatever the subreddit is, like for example, I want my subreddit to come up from this dot state dot sub r. So how I can do that? Now in the backtick, the good thing is I can just use a different syntax. Again, it's a curly braces syntax, but just before the curly braces I have to use a $sign, and there we go. We can use the variable now. So this dot state dot and sub r for subreddit and dot JSON. Now I find this approach quite easy because I can just write everything inside the backtick. I don't have to use the plus again. Again, it's a matter of choice. You can just go with that. Now obviously this gives us a promise, and you have learned quite a lot about the promises in the Firebase, so this is going to be good. So I'll hit a line break there and we get a then and we get a catch there. Now in the then we get a response. I'll just write a short of res for the response, and in the response I'll be using a callback there. There we go. This is where I'll be using a callback. I'll be closing it in here, and I'll leave a simple assignment of writing a catch for that, just like in the Firebase, catch the error and throw it there. Okay, and now we'll use a constant there that will be posts. And obviously you got that right. We are gonna just set the state of this post later on with this variable. Okay, now what we are doing is your res.data, this things gets you at the position in here. So this dot data you get till here, this object, whatever it comes up in, and obviously always the JSON is going to throw up a simple object to you. So this dot data gets you in here. Now in that there is another thing known as data. Now this is just a coincidence that it is saying data. It could have said things like something like results, or maybe random, or maybe iPhone, whatever it could have called. So look out in here, whatever it's saying. So we are saying res.data. After that we want to go into data, which is again an object, and inside that we want to go in the children. Now children is an array. Okay, so this dot data dot children, there we go, type it correctly, not like me. And we're going to use a dot map because we want to iterate over it. Okay, now what we'll be doing in this is we'll be creating simply an object there, and object is going to have simply a map dot, or simply like object dot data. Now obviously right now I'm just using one key there. I should be using the two keys there, one for just being passed on there. We'll fix that later on. Right now it's just completely okay. I know I'm just skipping a best practice there, but bear with me for a moment. I don't want to get into the complications here. Now we have already studied quite a lot about the map object, so that is why I'm skipping it. Okay, and we can later on simply do a this dot set state, and we want to set the state of posts. And this time I'm not going to write post colon post because I have told it quite a number of times that this is smart enough to know that I have to replace this with this post. Okay, that is good. So we have got a getReddit method, and it is going to be called up every time the component will load. Now obviously this is doing everything for us, but one thing is still remaining, which is we haven't done anything inside the render method, so it's not going to display anything in here. And so far we are expecting no errors. So okay, looks good, no error at all. And we are gonna do some things in here. So let's just get first of all an h1 there, close the h1, and there we go, looks good. Now inside in here I'll use a curly braces there, and inside the curly braces again I'm going to be using a backtick, and I'll be saying /r because in subreddit everything it just starts with the /r/. Okay, you'll see a lot of blogs like that. And now I want to replace it with the state variable, which is sub_r. So how I can do that? Again, it always starts with the curly braces, and you have to put a $sign before that, and then you can use your variable this dot state dot sub_r. Okay, looks good, nice. And let's just save and see if it is working. Yep, we have got r there. Obviously it is not being in the best CSS that we could have possibly put, but it's okay. Now next thing that we'll be doing is having an unordered list, and inside the unordered list we'll be just looping through the map object, and we'll be creating a lot of allies. Okay, how we are going to do that? We're going to simply say this dot state dot post, because notice our post is an array, so that is why we can simply say dot map, and in the map we can use post, any variable to be honest in here, and that is going to generate some allies for us. So I'll just hit a line break there, and this is going to generate an ally, and now we can give it a key. Key is going to be equal to, now bear with me in here, I haven't discussed it, but bear with me in here, post.id. Now this is coming up from the online object there, and this looks good so far. And in here we're going to simply say post.title. We don't want to display tons of information. This should be good. Now just wait in here for a second, and there we go. Now this is all coming up from the JSON object. In case you are a little bit confused that where this post ID is coming up, where this post.title is coming up, all of this is coming up from in here in the children. If I open up any subreddit, notice inside it's just looping in through and searching for the objects like IDs and data. So everything I have looked up into it quite detail, and notice one of the title is coming up from here, and that is week of March is being displayed in here. So again, I have already gone through and looked onto it. It took me a lot of time, but again, if you want to display anything else as well, feel free to just display. It's pretty simple, pretty easy, like clicked and link flare text, secure media, whatever you want to display. It's pretty easy. So it's just all about digging into the data just like that. Now, the important point that I would like to remind you is that first of all, make sure that whenever you go into it, res.data, this is going to give you an object. Now, once you're into the object, make sure you do everything via the state. It's a good idea, or maybe props if you somehow figured that out. But state is a good idea. Otherwise, if you're going to just try to store that into a variable and just do the things, it's not going to work, because this is a framework and everything is going to work with a certain set of architecture. But again, it's pretty easy. Now, I would highly recommend you to go with the super agent. Now, although Axios is perfectly fine, good, okay, but I want you to learn about reading the documentation and implementing the things on yourself. I would be really happy to see your code that is working really fine and okay with the super agent. Let me know in the Q&A section if somehow you are able to do the super agent and what your code looks like. So post a screenshot there. I would love to see that. And surely I'll catch you up in the next video.